Hi, and welcome to College Planning Untangled. I'm Kristin Clark. I'm here with Bobby Hood and Tammy Hoyman from EFR. And we're going to talk a little bit today, guys, about the transition to college. So, if you're a parent of a senior in high school, this is for you. And we just want to talk about what you need to be aware of when your kiddo's heading off to college. So, I'm going to hand it over to you, Bobby.
All right, great. So, welcome, Tammy. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Bobby?
Oh, just great. This
Good.
is such a great conversation. I'm glad to get to get back talking with you again. I mean, it's I think for those who've got new seniors or new college freshmen, they are like maybe thinking, "Gosh, there's some conversations maybe we should have had before they left and went off." Right.
Right.
So everybody who's a senior right now, everybody's just now, submitting their early action, applications, getting college applications wrapped up. And so now it's time to start thinking about you know, next year you're going to be heading off, right?
What's it going to be like
Yeah.
when your senior is a freshman
hmm
and they're
And
not living under your roof anymore and
mhm.
they're starting to spread their wings as a young adult on their own?
Yeah, and I think, I guess, back a long time ago when I went, it was sort of like, well, you just go and you kind of figure you're going to just figure it out, right? And
Yep,
I think it's more complicated than that, especially now. There I think there's more things that need to be thought about, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. I think that the impact of social media cannot be underestimated. I
Mhm,
think the our global world
mhm.
and the impacts of you know different messages from places that we didn't get
Yeah,
back in the
right?
day you
That's
know
true, but I mean, even for me, thinking about that, like social media and things like that, and then just like you just go and I mean, I think there were some defaults that I think were assumed. Like for instance, my parents just assumed that I would join a fraternity and be in the Greek system, and I never even kind of had considered the option of not doing that, right?
hmm
And if I could go back, I would have a lot more thoughts about that. And I mean,
right,
I enjoyed it, and I have a lot of friends that I made that way, but I have a lot of friends who didn't do that, and I never even considered it, right? So these are things that should be thought about,
right,
right?
right. I would say that one of the biggest differences that I've noticed from when I did college a long
hmm
time ago and my kids did college just finishing up and just starting. um everything is just ramped up so much,
hmm
just the pressure and the intensity is so it just seems so much more extreme than it was. I mean, I just recall getting dropped off at college and parents going, good luck.
Yeah, that's how it was. Yeah, I think for a lot of us back then, right? Uh, well, so I'd just like to talk about all of these things, but you
Yeah,
mentioned social media and the changes of that. I mean, so what?
right.
Let's start with that. I mean, what are the conversations that parents need to have with their kids before they head off about these things? What sort of
Sure.
things should people to be talking about?
Sure. I mean, I'm going to kind of go back to the whole thing about extremes. And what I
Mhm,
would really encourage parents to talk to their students about is balance.
mhm,
And let's talk about moderation. But it can be in
mhm,
extremes, or if you're going if you're going overboard on anything. I
mhm,
mean, is it is a kid feeling this intensity around doing everything perfect? I have to join the sorority or fraternity. I have to be the student rep dorm floor. I have to,
mhm.
of course, 4 point, and
Yeah.
then I have to be involved. I have to be social. I have to be, um, I think that just dialing that back and having a conversation with your kid about what are their priorities, what do they
Yes.
really want to focus on, what fits for them. And I mean, I think the dangers of social media is all that comparison
Hmm.
and of course, what does everybody post on social media? Their
Right.
best days. And I think it would be easy to think I got to run faster, I got to do more, or I give up, I just can't measure up.
Okay. Yeah. There's a lot there. I mean, one is like a student might pressure themselves
Hmm.
to be 100% everything. And they need to know, they maybe need to hear from their parents, like, no, you don't have to be everything and you don't have to do everything. And what are your values and what are your goals? And you
Yes.
got to pick a few because you can't do every single thing. And
Yeah.
then tying in how social media can create this, the rat race, the competition where you you feel like, oh, everybody else is having this amazing life and they're doing everything and they're in everything and they're going on every, trip and they're going out
Yeah.
every night and they're not really doing that. And remembering that, that social media is, a front,
It
not
is.
not reality, right? That's so
Absolutely.
important. And it may be, I think a lot of people, like, maybe parents think their kids know this, or they think that they have conveyed that, it's okay to do what you want to do and to moderate things. But you have to say these things out loud, right? And so you maybe need to actually sit down and
Absolutely.
have the conversation because
Yeah.
things you
Yeah.
think are understood maybe aren't, right? And so,
100%. Yes.
yep. Uh, I can't think of anything more important, than I think everybody gets so wrapped up in the application process and the choosing and all that, and then they forget about, okay, let's get ready for this. And I mean, I
Hmm.
know, like, the whole getting dropped into it and right, just figure it out, right? But like so many, and this is something that Kristin brings up so often is, the statistics of the number of students who drop out or don't return after the first year of college. It's like,
Hmm.
30% don't return after the first year. And man, with the investment of time and money and emotional energy, you don't want to
Hmm.
be one of those 30%, right? You want to figure
Right.
this out before. And so part of that is people who go and because they weren't prepared for the social media and the comparisons and the trying to do everything, they get overwhelmed because you can't get a
Right.
4 point and be in every organization and go out every night. You can't do that,
Right.
right? Something is going to fail. And so what can we talk about before to help with, like, just how to, it's not just moderation, but also managing all this stuff. What can we talk about?
Right. Right. I think it's super important to have the conversation, and not just a conversation, the ongoing conversation about the importance of your social and emotional health
Hmm.
when you're off on your own. When you're living all under the same roof,
Yeah.
as a parent, it gives you an opportunity to kind of monitor how they're doing, how do they seem to be coping, what are the choices they're making. But when they're off to college, they're doing that primarily on their own. And they should
Hmm.
be. They need to be doing those things. They have to practice making those kinds of decisions
Hmm.
and living their own life. But I have to assume the reason for the high dropout rate after the first year has a lot to do with social and emotional health
Absolutely.
and students getting out of balance.
Hmm.
I think having the conversation about all of the choices and
Hmm.
distractions at college, substance big one, I think.
Hmm.
Just meeting new people.
Hmm.
I have to mention the social media kind of hookup
Hmm. Yeah.
things.
Right.
I
Sure.
mean, back
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
day, we would meet people that we wanted to date
Right.
either in classes or
Yep.
at the
Walking around
bar or
campus or yep, they're at
right,
lunchroom or yep, right in
sure.
the cafeteria.
And now there's so many other choices that
Yeah.
some are a little sketchy. So
Yeah,
having
sure.
those
Yeah.
conversations, let's talk about it. And your kid may not want to talk to you about Tinder. I get it, or whatever it's
Right.
called. But just letting them know,
Hmm.
there's going to be a lot of choices available to you.
Hmm.
So how are you going to do that? How are you going to process through those things?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, and just looking at some of the things that we had mentioned beforehand, like, it's like I remember, like, and it's very interesting right now with the students that I tutor. Some of the students that I tutor manage, even in high school, like manage, and the parents tell me they're just like, oh, my kid just completely, they take care of their schedule. They're very responsible. They know what they have to do this week. They've got their calendar. But then I know that another, like about half of my tutoring students, the parents are managing all that. And they're the ones telling the kid, oh, you have this to do tomorrow at 4, and you have this Thursday. And, and I remember when I got into college and I didn't have a calendar, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was, on which day and I mean, all I knew is when my classes were, but like I think you got to talk about like, okay, like if you've got a kid who's already managing all that and has been doing that since sophomore year of high school, then yeah, you probably don't even need to talk about that much. But for students who don't know how to do that, I mean, it's as silly as, like I mean, we all knew the people who were in college and had never like run a load of laundry before, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing if you've never run your own calendar, like, okay, do you need a paper calendar? Do you know how to use Google Calendar, Apple, whatever?
Right.
Like what's on there? How are you going to do that? Right? How are you going to
Right.
manage this stuff?
Right.
Uh,
And I think that you make a really, really important point, Bobby. I think parents that overfunction as their kids are moving into young adulthood are not doing their kids any favors.
mm,
I know it feels like you're helping,
yeah.
but if your child does not learn how to do those things on their own, sadly enough, they're going to enter the workforce
Right.
without those skills.
Yeah.
And I'm as an employer, I have to tell you, I am shocked by the number of applicants that we've had, young applicants that their parents are involved in them applying for jobs.
Oh
And
no. Oh, I have not heard of
I,
that. Oh
and
no.
I have and talking to
Wow.
other employers, I mean, that it sounds extreme,
I can't
but
believe
I
that.
mean,
Wow.
I will tell you that, as check yourself as a parent. Am I allowing my student to make those choices and make those mistakes? And it is so difficult. But they've got to make those decisions.
Well, this is fascinating because I mean, I absolutely know that some portion of the students that I tutor, that their parents are kind of managing all that stuff. It's very easy to tell, right? And so, I mean, there are people and there are good people and good parents out there, but who have done too much of that. And
Absolutely.
if you're watching this video and you've got a senior or a junior and you are still maybe feeling like maybe you're like waking up and going, oh, maybe I'm doing a little much, they need to start taking some independence and some responsibility for managing things, because otherwise in college they're going to run into a wall, right? And that's the thing, and it's scary to do because you're like, part of that is if you let your kid have the responsibility to manage things, they're going to make some mistakes, they're going to forget some things, and that's part of life, right? Is forgetting some things sometimes, and then working
You don't
that out,
do it again,
right?
then don't do you?
And learning how to not do that
Yeah.
the next time, right? And learning,
Absolutely.
I have to write that down in the calendar. If I tell somebody I'm going to do something, next Thursday, I have to put it in the calendar, and that's something you learn, right?
Right.
That's interesting. And so this is just about, it's never too late to start helping your kid become independent. And at some point, you have to do it at some point. And maybe some people, I grew up in that generation where a whole lot of us had to start getting real independent around age 10 or 13, the latchkey kids, and like, and then, so, I mean, that's what they all say about the Gen X that I'm in, is like, a lot of us learned how to come home from school and make our own food and stuff, and I didn't have to do that much of it, but yeah, but it's like encourage your kid to, start taking some responsibility things. And if you haven't done it yet, now is a good time.
Right.
So what are some other things go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that, leads into one of my next thoughts, which is, the parents of juniors and seniors right now have a great opportunity to help their kids to prepare how to take care of themselves. So talk to your kid. Okay, you're on campus and you are very ill. You're very sick. Mm-hmm. Do you know where to go? You find yourself super stressed out. You find yourself very depressed and or worried. Very common, very, very common for all of us, but especially as you're transitioning into a new stage of life. Do you know where to go on campus to get that kind of help? Conversation you can have with your student so that you don't necessarily have to help them to access it while they're in that crisis.
Okay, this is so important. And so this is the conversation is, okay, where are those services on campus?
Mm-hmm.
Where they are. And okay, if you are feeling overwhelmed, this is what you're going to do, right? We've both talked about it. You're going to go there. You're going to call me. You're going to, if you find yourself, something has happened, you feel uncomfortable in a situation, whatever it is, something bad happens when you're, doing something with Tinder or whatever, I want you to call me. It is okay for you to call me. It is okay for you to go here. I am not going to be mad at you, right? Like, you need to say those things. If something bad happens, don't be ashamed and afraid. Call me, right?
Absolutely.
And you won't be in trouble.
Or who are you going to call?
Right. Or call these other people, right? Or go to this service, right?
Who is your person?
Say it out loud because otherwise it's really easy to be scared and to not say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when you start sort of hiding in your room and not coming out and not going to class. And then things go really bad.
Right.
And, I'm getting a little emotional even saying this because, I have friends that happened to. And
it's true.
And, it's
so
important.
Of different things can trigger that spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And that spiral doesn't have to be the end. I also can think about occasions or times when people have been able to interrupt that spiral where they start to go downhill, but they either reach out for help somewhere or someone reaches out to them. So I think that's also a great message for parents to talk to their students about. What if you see one of your friends or a roommate struggling?
Yeah.
What do you do? That can be really scary, really frightening if, you see a roommate or, that, quit going to class, been in there, been in bed for a week straight, not eating.
Yeah.
Or partying all the time, bringing dates home into the dorm room. What do you do? How are you going to address those things?
Yeah. And that's absolutely, it's so important. And it's all of these things can happen to anyone because everyone will all say, not my kid or whatever, but it can happen to anyone.
Yes.
It's, I knew this is an important conversation, but my gosh. Right. And it, so, it seems like this all circles back around to moderation, but also communication, right?
Yes.
It's just talking about things before they happen because, that what you said about have the conversation about what are you going to do when this happens? That's so important. It's so that you are prepared. And then when something goes strange, immediately in their mind, the student is like, oh, okay, we talked about this. I'm supposed to go here. I'm supposed to call this, right? Instead of the spiral of, oh no, what am I going to do? Right.
Right.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Uh, yeah, I'm really, I just can't think about how important these things are, and I'm really glad that we're talking about it. Any other
Right.
thoughts of things that are just good things that we ought to include? I think we've hit some really important things here.
Yeah, I think, I mean, just I'd say in summary, think about your student holistically. I
Yeah.
know, I mean, college seems like it's so much about academics, so much about career preparation,
Mhm.
and it is.
Yeah.
But holistically, that young person is growing and developing. Brain development, they're saying, continues through age 26.
Yeah.
And just think, I mean, I think just, okay, stressed out. What are good outlets for stress?
Mhm.
Um, do you need to, go for a walk? Do you need to, get into some kind of a yoga class? There are all sorts of different resources available. Of course, think about mental health resources.
Uh-huh.
Think about, but there are so many, natural supports in place and so many different ways to help your student to manage through that early adulthood, that is very exciting, very influential in the rest of
Yeah.
our lives. That can be so scary too.
That's fascinating. Like, when I'm tutoring students, often I talk about test stress and test anxiety, and
Mhm.
and so much of it is common sense, but you have to still have to say it out loud.
Oh, yeah.
Like, one of the best, strategies for managing test anxiety is to go for a walk for 20 minutes outdoors
Mhm.
each day the week before you go take the standardized test.
Yeah.
Like, that part of test anxiety is, don't just sit there studying for the test. Go outside and walk for 20 minutes
Mhm.
is the biggest anxiety reducer if you live in the right place,
Right.
at least.
Mhm.
But yeah, and so these are things to just talk about, because if you have these conversations, then that gives the your students some tools. Just like, okay, don't just, if you're feeling this way, go to the campus resource center, but at least just get out of bed and go walk around outside for a minute,
Right.
and
Yes.
that may change
Exactly.
things right there, right?
Right.
So such a great conversation. I think, parents who are seeing this, there are so many resources out there, but I think all we're saying here is, don't just assume that your kid's going to figure this out on their own, right? Just have some conversations about it. You probably having a million conversations about other topics with your kid, right? Have this one, right?
Yes.
And that's it. Well, Tammy,
Absolutely.
it's always amazing to get to talk to you. Uh, People can find you, right? Your website is there,
Mhm.
uh, below, EFR, Employee and Family Resources. Uh, you help both, families and employees and all sorts of people, like,
Absolutely.
understand these things and figure out how to have these conversations. And of course, Kristin's out at a conference, so she had a noisy background today, so that's why she's been hiding in the background there. But it's great to have this conversation. I really appreciate it. People can always find me, Bobby Hood, onlinetutoring.com, and Kristin Clark is at her College Planning Untangled sites. You've got those websites. So thanks so much, Tammy, and we will be
Thank
continuing
you.
this conversation again in a little while. So thanks so much.
Absolutely. I
All
wish
right.
all you parents the best of luck getting your kids ready.
Absolutely.